we're glad to leave this with y'all, and you can play it again.
Can that thing just be put on our website for people to look at?
Certainly.
Mayor Best,
Yeah.
you're
So what
presenting
was
this
that?
maybe soon.
Yeah, why don't you pause it?
Once you do that, we may
Let's-
then put this clip on our website after you have a
That,
chance to
no.
do that.
Okay.
Well, that'd be
So,
great.
we'll get back to work.
Yeah, we'll put it on our town
It's
website.
going slow, we're not slow
Yeah.
enough.
Okay.
Put it on.
LA confirmed we're back on
We got to check
live
that.
stream.
Oh, we are, okay, wonderful.
Thankfully.
Great.
Yes.
So, as we go through here, what you're looking at in the media center here, this is the Storytime corner back here. And so, I mean, you all are the Jonesboro Tigers, and orange is the predominant color here. But orange everywhere, we thought was a little bit too much. So we've got some accent colors, and there's these a light blue and a darker blue. And those are never paired together because we want to make sure that we're not competing with any other schools that are healthy rivals. But in this, in the one place where they do kind of come together is in this Storytime area here. I got the hang of this now. So the bookshelves and then these raised tiers with those three carpets there, but that's where those bright colors are. And that's something that's sort of fun for the kids to go and have story time. And there's a little teens corner here. This is a library classroom, to answer your question, that's off the side. So, and then we're using a little bit of this light blue in there, sort of a calming color to contrast with that bright orange. Bright orange can be, very loud and kind of a strong color. This is looking down the hallway to the multi-purpose. We're going to come back around and look at that in a minute. We're going down what we call the Great Hall. We're going to take a left into the cafeteria. We try to keep a pretty simple palette, especially in the cafeteria. The kids and the things in the school, the students and the teachers, they're the color and the life of the school. So that's sort of our philosophy. You're looking into the kitchen, the serving area there. And this looks out to the east, out to the future ball fields. And there's a little dining terrace out there that could be used.
Aaron Keith had asked, I'm sorry for interrupting, had asked what the capacity of the cafeteria is.
Thank you for reminding me. We did look that up, Keith. It is 275 students.
Okay. So that's 1,000, so that's gonna be at least four lunches, three and a half lunches, so.
That is our current furniture layout. Once we get into the real furniture, that could go up. Could go, probably not going to go down. There's pretty healthy space in there, so you're probably going to look at 4 though.
Are those soundboards?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
I was
you.
gonna ask you about
Thank you for
that.
asking. So, yeah, it can get really
Yes, it can.
loud in the cafeteria, as y'all know, especially with 275 students in there, middle school students. So those are acoustic panels, and they're that light blue accent color. That is sort of trying to use that to kind of in between where we want to really show off the athletics and the school colors, kind of have that as a more calming, contrasting color.
What's the idea behind the broken or segmented ceiling grid? I mean, it looks like it's open.
That's a great question, Mitch. Those are what we call sort of ceiling clouds, and it's open. They're there to absorb sound and bring the ceiling down, but everything above it is painted out and open. And those are just like a 1-foot little strip, so you can imagine kind of seeing it. Gives you a little bit more sense of volume in there, but these are 10 feet to the bottom of that, so it's going to be a nice volume in there. So we're going to keep walking through here. The floor in here is this one. It's a little bit less expensive than those colorful ones there. And that's what you're seeing on the floor in there. So we're going to walk out into the hallway and head down towards what we call the multi-purpose or the auxiliary gym.
That door you just went through is the exit door from the cafeteria, so that the kids are going out of the cafeteria in a different door than the entrance door coming into the cafeteria.
There's 3 doors in there to give y'all plenty of opportunities to make sure that you can cue everything right. This is in the auxiliary gym. The bleachers are pulled out in this configuration, and there's a little stage there that you could have a performance on. This is an operable partition. When that's closed, it blocks the sound off, and this will become the band room. So we're kind of doing double duty with that space. gonna walk back out, the other parallel hallway. On your right are the locker rooms, and then that's looking back towards the media center where we started.
How wide is the hallway space?
I believe it's 6 feet there.
6 feet?
Yeah.
Standard, okay.
Yeah, it's
Didn't
pretty
look that
big.
big.
It looks narrow in that
Yeah.
one, it does, but it's actually a pretty healthy
Good,
hallway.
good.
And the great hall's really wide, so it makes that
Right.
one look even more narrow.
That's probably it.
This is the great hall. Now we're gonna walk into the gym. You walk by a trophy case there on the left. So this is the gym. It seats 900 on the bleachers. Here's where we really want to play up the bright tiger orange and the contrasting it with the dark gray, which are that dark black and orange, dark gray and orange are the school colors. Some of the structure is exposed, will also be that dark color.
Sound system in there,
It is wired for that, yes.
is that part of our FF&E?
I believe that would be part of ours.
So the bleachers are not to exact scale, like there would be handrails and guardrails and things like that, correct?
There will be handrails and guardrails. They are the right size, but we didn't.
Well, I mean, if you look up at the top, I can just imagine kindergartners jumping over and down and through. but-
So, and
I'm
forgive
just-
me in front of.
Those are just for their, just to put the place there.
There will be permanent handrails here. This is actually the concessions beyond, and those fold flat against the concessions there. They're kind of tucked underneath there to kind of save a little space. But there were permanent handrails there, and then the ones that you're used to seeing fold up.
Yes.
But that's a good question. That we're looking at.
Are they manual electric?
They're electric. They're big enough that you want that. Whoops. You get to see the gym again. Can you do it?
Oh, wait.
I think we got past it.
Are we good? Okay. All right. So from here, we're gonna start back out at the Great Hall, and we're gonna walk down the 2nd and 3rd grade classroom. So each of the classrooms, we want to give its own identity. And so these 4 colors here are the colors of the classrooms. This orange is the one we're going to go down as we take a left here by the SRO office. That is the 2nd and 3rd grade. This is the CDC kindergarten color, which is on the 1st floor of the opposite wing. And you moving upstairs, that blue-green is the 4th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the dark color is the middle school.
So that hallway 6 foot?
No, that hallway is
8 foot.
8, 6, 9 feet.
Yeah, almost 10.
9 feet. Yeah, it's not. We can count the tile actually.
Yeah.
6, 8, 9. I think it's 9 or maybe a little bit more. It's a little wider on the middle school side because those kids are a little bigger and they throw an elbow sometimes. So we want to give them plenty of space to do that. So each of these hallways has the floor, which kind of comes out into the hallway, and then the walls and the ceiling are painted in the same color. And so that you know what your classroom is, we've got these big vinyl numbers which correspond to the room number. So this 2nd grader or 1st grader that's going in this space would know, I'm in room 106. And you can see that from long ways down the hallway to the teacher. So you're not, it gets monotonous with that many classrooms down the hallway. So that's something that's a little fun, and that will be in addition to the code required signage for the grade. So we're going to go in a classroom here. We're going to take that same color and start to use, this is the teaching wall here. All the classrooms have these big windows that go floor to ceiling, let a lot of natural light in there. There's a little in the, yeah, let me pause that. So this is a 1st grade classroom. This door here goes in the toilet room. So each of the kindergarten and 1st grade classrooms have their own toilet room. And then you can't see it, but there's a door here that's a storage room off in each of those classrooms as well. We've used that same orange color on the ceiling and the walls here in these little recesses. They've got a sink, and the teachers have some storage. And on this side, where you've got cubbies, and then teacher storage above. And And so, I don't know if I made that clear, so each of the 4 hallways, the 2 wings, has its own color, with a similar theme of as you go in those little recesses to get into 2 classrooms, it has that color on the floor and the tiles kind of sprinkle out into the hallway, as well as the large numbers.
So is that carpet squares, this carpet squares in those?
No, it is the LVT as well.
Okay.
But I'm glad you asked about the carpet because we kind of flew by.
Well, it just looked different than the other pictures, so I
It
wasn't
is,
sure.
it is a square tile, and it is these same ones that you saw in the cafeteria, so it'll be that lighter gray color there. The reason that we did that is that it's a little bit thinner and a little bit, we had to get the color, it costs a little bit more money. So in the classrooms where we have the good acoustic ceilings, we want to make sure that we're using your budget wisely.
Absolutely.
And again, you don't have the lighting, but it will be.
We don't have the lighting, Mary, thank you. You asked about that last time too. As we put all these
For viewing
elements in, there are some here, I don't know why.
Access looks good.
There will be, lights like
The
this.
LED, yeah.
They're all LEDs throughout.
Thank you for.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, even though they're not on, you can see how bright it is.
Oh, I know.
It does accurately render that. And so some of the teachers may choose to have them off or partially off sometimes, depending on how much light they're getting. So as we continue, we're going to start back on the second floor in the Great Hall.
Yeah, it'll have this. Audio.
We're looking down at that, what we call the courthouse steps. There's 2 little windows you can look into the gym. So if you're at halftime, you're eating your popcorn, you're not going to miss the game. You're looking back at the entry there. And again, I think there's a lot of opportunities throughout the school for some artwork. It'd be really nice to get some local artists involved in a mural or even doing something with the students. It'd be nice. So we're walking down the second floor, Great Hall, past science classrooms. On the left, there's the data room, telecom room. So here you're going to start seeing lockers for the 6th, 7th, 8th graders in middle school. This is the river toilet rooms here. The sinks face the hallway. And we're walking down towards the 6th grade and 7th grade classrooms. And here they've got that darker, almost a navy blue color.
So when the restrooms, are the lights in there, like if there's no movement for so long, they go off?
Yes.
Okay. They were, as you went by, they were it looked like they were flashing, so I didn't know if that was. Oh, okay.
No, they do their on occupancy sensor. So if nobody's in there, they have to go on.
How about the classroom?
The classrooms do that as well. It's possible to override it though, but usually it works well enough when you have that many students in it. Sometimes if the teacher's by themselves, sometimes they'll want to be able to override it if they're in there late preparing for class or that kind of thing.
What about water bottle filling stations as you kind of blew by the restrooms? Are there?
Every single high-low drinking fountain, one high, one for somebody in a wheelchair, it has an integrated water bottle filler. Good question. So we'll go into a middle school classroom. You can see it's a little different. There's no cubbies. We're bringing a little bit of that same accent color inside.
Will the doors have handles on them?
Yes, sir. I like it.
For the viewing public.
It's always dangerous to do this because if you don't model everything, it looks out like the lights and the windows, the handrails.
Try that again, I didn't see the windows there. Do they have the same bright?
Yeah, so you can see, no, this particular one is going to look out into the courtyard. And just to give you all a sense of scale there, that courtyard is 100 feet wide, so it'll be a really neat space. Yeah. I mean, you can really grow some big trees in there. So we're working with Eaton Locks to develop that landscape design now.
Is the plan for the windows, the window glass, is it clear from the exterior, or is it tinted, or, I mean, as far as people being able to see in the classrooms and whatnot?
It is clear that the thing about seeing in the windows when it's night, you all know this from experience, you see in it at night. During the day, it does reflect the light, it reflects the sky, depending on where you're at. There will be a need for roller shades in some of the orientations. These particular ones facing north, I don't think you'd ever pull the shade down unless you need to darken the classroom to show something. With the TVs now that we have, they're so bright, you can see it even when the lights on.
Well, I'm thinking more from a security standpoint.
From a security standpoint.
The hallway windows on the doors and stuff, and I guess that would be things that the teachers would place over.
That's a good point. I mean, certain ones that do face out to the parking lot, I can imagine there might be certain times where they want those down, or if there was an emergency situation, you want to be able to do it quickly. So this is coming to the end here. So that's the teaching wall. There would be a similar clear touch on that wall there. They have a sink. Every classroom has a little sink area, and that's where we bring that same accent color in.
Looks nice.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So we're glad to answer any more questions, or if y'all have any, if you want to take a look at the materials more closely. We didn't get into all the nuts and bolts there, but feel free to get up with us, and we're glad to.
Are all the classrooms the same size?
Yeah, the little kids are slightly bigger, just because they need a little more space. But they're all pretty close together.
Is there a washer and, is there a washer and dryer near the bed?
For the CDC classrooms, there is a washer and dryer. Yes.
We spent a lot of time on CDC classes to make sure that there weren't any hiccups on that in terms of the timeout room and the square footage and all that. And so, and I can say that, if you don't mind, that we've had a lot of conversations with your staff, and it has all been very positive. You all have a really wonderful staff, and they're very competent and knowledgeable, and that's been wasn't a surprise per se, but I just emphasize they're very impressive, and we've had a lot of cooperation.
Everybody was very engaged and helpful, and said, well, we did this here, and maybe we can do a little different here. This works really well, so let's do that here. And so that's been a really vital part of this whole process, is to get the feedback.
Thank you all for keeping that dialogue going. It's risky.
Well, look forward to having you all out to the building when we get some walls up and can do this same tour in reality and make sure we got the doorknobs working and the lights on.
The lights.
Yeah. The guardrails on the bleachers. Maybe we can play game of horse.
Very good. Thank you all very much.
Bob,
Thank you for having
anything
us.
on the timeline? I mean, as far as this,
Well, yeah, the
Property.
contract with Burwell is in November 2023. Obviously, we worked hard to get things going. We greatly appreciate the cooperation we had on the very front end. Within a week's time period, we went through the county commission, you all, the town board, rural development approval, and within 5 days, we were able to give the notice to proceed to Burwell, and they had Summer Taylor working the next week. That's been a godsend because we were able to get it graded in the whole footprint of the school compacted to where they were pouring concrete in December, and that's allowed us to continue to work throughout the winter. So that's been great. They're on schedule. Our goal is to still try to get it open in August if we can, but
if not, you do it, I guess, over Christmas break, or, I mean, if it ended up being a November you know, I
We
mean,
don't
what
have
to
a
do.
plan B at this point,
Okay.
other than August. I'm not gonna talk about the
Okay.
Yeah,
December.
the well has really
Yeah.
been cooperating well. So that dry winter, it not only kept the schedule on track, but it saved a lot of money that we had in there just in case. We're not out of the weeds yet. They're still putting a lot of site infrastructure in. But there's some savings that can go back to buying things that for the school.
Well, hopefully a future school board won't have to deal with
The Tommy Burris doesn't like me to mention it, but you know, we have just right at $500,000 in allowances on soils and rock removal and bad soils and having to haul in shale and all that. And thus far, we have spent $12,000. So that does, you know, we're not finished, but you know, as far as the school is concerned, we're not looking at. I don't think there's any indication that we'll be spending that around the building itself, which is normally where it goes. So we'll just see what happens with that. But you know, obviously that'll go someplace else in the whole complex if we don't spend it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
We're
Very impressive.
Thank you for having us. We're out there every other Thursday morning at 10. So if you all want to come by and be bored in the construction meeting and walk around the site with us, feel free to let that happen.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we'll gather
Grab
this.
these.
Thank you all.
So we can get it on
Great.
our website.
We can, yes.
Thank
I believe Mayor Best has a presentation Thursday
you. Okay.
after he's able to do that. And then I think we can put it
We
on
can
the
put it
website.
on, that'd be good. Thanks.
We're glad to shorten it a little bit. It's kind of a long one. If you wanted us to, we can talk.
I just think.
You think it's
No,
just
that
do it?
needs the full
Yeah.
effect.
I think,
Okay.
yeah,
I'd make a note, I'd be like, this will have lights, doors on, guardrails, just, you know, just.
it's a, you know, I believe it's at a movie file, an MOV file.
Yeah.
We can cut it if we need
Okay.
to.
Still fundraising for doorknobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we make sure you get a copy if you need, so.
Yeah, we can edit it if we just need to pull out sections.
Mr. Wayne? Mr. Grandy, who's next?
Hey, thanks for the time. We won't be fancy, but we will be shorter. Just wanted to give a little bit of an update on where we are, what we've been doing, try to get ball fields in place at Boones Creek. So, the first project was to regrade the site. It was left after the site contractor
Double tap it, James.
finished his work in just a slope from the school to the road, create some drainage. And so now it's been regraded, the football, soccer field, and it's really, in a configuration that's playable if there was better turf on it and track stone, ADA access to the school. And so next is these ball fields, for baseball and soccer and softball fields. And so we've now priced at least parts of it 3 times. Once Pearl priced it, then we pulled it all back together and gave it to Wilson to see if they could alter some things and get priced up. Both times, the project has come in at over about $1 million. And we had about 3.2 or so to start with and spent about $1 million in the initial grading phase. So we've got about roughly a little over $2 million left. So the last time we priced it, we asked James and Wayne to pull together what it would take just to build the fields, to get the fence up and build the fields and some basic infrastructure. And so that is right at about $2 million, but it doesn't come with a very important facility here in the center, which is concessions, restrooms, a little bit of shelter to get out of here. So, while we, are in a position to sort of move forward with some of the project, nobody really has gotten very comfortable, so it's gone to a couple of our commission committees, most recently the committee on facilities for the county. And, we just really don't want to move forward, not back to the rest of the county. And I don't think y'all do. So, just wanted to get you up to date, kind of where we are. So, James, what about you about?
Well, the two handouts I just sent around to you guys, the first one that's dated December 1st, that's kind of the overall snapshot. If you look on the very back, you can see, if you break it out into phases, kind of budgetary wise, that's kind of the order that we would see you doing it if you did it in multiple phases. Get the ball fields up so that you can play when the sun's up. The next thing would be to bring in your bases for the light poles, then do your concession stand, go into the site lighting and scoreboard, then you're add plug out roofing, then you're going back and doing your walkways, and then as money became available, we would add in the maintenance shop building and the concessions for the soccer field. Because there's three buildings shown originally, one down here for the ball fields, which is concessions and restrooms, and then you've got concessions and restrooms up here for soccer, and then you had kind of the women's building for your mowers and all that. So we kind of, the maintenance shop and the soccer field is kind of a later down the line, and then they showed all these elaborate walking trails around here, which was kind of a nicety, but is a must-have for kids to play sports. So that's why they're last on the list. If you go to the one that's dated March 28th, this is when we went out for hard numbers for that first phase that the mayor was speaking of. And that gets you your 4 ball fields, all your fencing, your special infield dirt, landscaping, grass seed everywhere, and your dugouts, your bat racks, your concrete for your dugouts, your curbs, and kind of just get you 4 fields that are playable when the sun's out and it's not raining. It's kind of the bare minimum approach is the March document, and the December document shows an overall picture.
So first, we just wanted to get you up to date on what's been going on over the last year in terms of trying to get these things built. And, listen for your input, maybe direction as to where you think we should go next. Because there is the possibility of doing the commission and saying it would be another $1 million to do concrete and at least 8 buildings, these baseball fields. Or maybe some other approach. But the building itself in the middle, James, we've seen it a couple of different places. It's the way it's designed. It's about $500,000 plus.
I think it was right under $1 million.
The Burwell is probably about 750.
Yeah, it's 914 was back in December's budget. And not only does that get you your concessions and your bathrooms, but it's giving you your electrical rooms for your lights and your scoreboards, and all your infrastructure is going to come to there.
Well, that's basically the most important most important thing. If we ain't got bathrooms, changing rooms, the ball fields, in my opinion, you don't need ball fields. You've got to have a place to go with a restroom and everything, so.
Keith, that was all sort of where we wound up when we saw what we could do with the money. Let's put the brakes on this and get a little input and see if there's a different way to go.
So, school-wise, as far as our kids are concerned, we wouldn't need anything but, the football/soccer field and a baseball/softball field to start out with. So if you're you're trying to accommodate the school itself, you know, we would need all 4 fields at one time. That was just for, I think, maybe the county to bring in some tournaments and stuff to pull in money.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of talk about this as a revenue generator, and I had this conversation earlier today, and I've had it multiple times before. From the county's perspective, bringing people in to play on these fields is fine, but it's really not a revenue generator. You know, the school system currently rents fields at other schools for tournaments at a rate that doesn't generate money. I mean, it breaks even probably by the time you land the field, do all the mowing and do cleanup. The promoters are the ones who make the money on the tournaments, and if it's out of town, people that are coming in, it's hotels, motels, and restaurants, none of which are specifically in the rural part of the county, except the Johnson City or other area revenue generator. So while, you know, obviously the city is in the county, and we would support that, I mean, as a county government, it won't bring any money to the counties. So one of the things we have done in the last, well, since we got these last bids, is take a look at your turf people that are doing football fields, and ask them to look at this as Cardinal Park with a turf infield and a grass outfield, which long-term reduces the maintenance and the preparation of the fields for play. You have to line them, and you don't really, there's some maintenance involved, but it's not, you have to drag them and line them every single time you play. And that is actually at a cost that's not very far from all the special dirt that goes in there. So that's a doable thing if you think. You know, again, we would ask you all for input on that.
I asked the board just a little while ago, what does the county feel like? What about tennis courts?
You call it clearance, sounds.
Tennis, Clarence May wants tennis courts.
Well, he does.
And I don't care to have them myself. And if we don't have them at our high schools, if we fix some tennis courts there and just have one ball field or one softball, one baseball, and the rest of it be tennis courts.
We haven't priced tennis courts, but I'll guarantee you they're less expensive than a baseball field. And so, you know, that's only an option, and without half of that space being utilized, and it's already graded relatively flat, so it wouldn't take a lot of site work to build tennis courts on, you know, one side or the other.
So what do we need to do? Talk about?
Well, I don't know what the path forward is. We came today really for, one, to give you an update, and two, to just sort of say, how do you feel like we ought to move forward? Maybe we could create a small task force or something of board members from the school and commission members to just sort of, you know, look at the options and say, what do we want this thing to look like? But if it's going to be 2 fields done, that changes significantly. It reduces the size of the concession stand, probably, so it's might make it a little smaller.
When all this started, Joe, it was the county's Parks and Rec.
Of which there isn't one.
Which there isn't one, but the county was going to get into Parks and Rec business. To me, that's theirs. Whatever they decide they want, they know we told them that we wanted a ball field, a softball, and a baseball field.
They asked what the minimum that we needed.
The minimum. Now,
So, I mean,
would this board support tennis courts?
Let's do this. We know where they're at. Why don't we put this on a workshop and?
Well, if he wants to make a task force.
Is that okay with you?
I think, you know, kind of like the Jones Brad Design Committee, I think.
Well, we all hear what he's asking, and we ain't got an answer tonight, of course, and I think if we put it on the workshop and everybody have time to process it, think about it, and then, because I know there's a lot of work went into coming up with this. And then we can talk about tennis court. Is that fair to everybody?
Well, like I said, we did this thing 3 times, and, you know, wishes we might, it's just not gonna get less expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So the question is, what do we, you know, what's the path forward? The money that was, is still set aside for this project, and we don't anticipate that changing until you all make up, you know, decide what direction you'd like for us to move. And it was sort of, once we got these prices, I wanted to sort of push it along, because if we were going to move forward with something, we needed to do it because we had hard numbers, and you know how construction is, and they're changing really fast. So I'm gonna ask Greg to just pull it off of the commission meeting. There's no reason for them necessarily to weigh in on it until I think y'all decide how you'd like for us to move forward. So that's the direction.
We're firing everybody.
Yeah, and didn't expect an answer tonight. That's not the intent, but just here's where we are. Think about any other options, you know, to get some of this done.
Could you send that to Jennifer so we can make copies and be able to?
We got it.
We got it.
There's 2 copies of each of them.
Oh, but no, that's the whole.
That's right here.
I know that.
Would you like this on a smaller?
If we can just get a PDF, we can send it out of the full site design.
Yes, please.
So just one for everyone. We'll get that.
So, Mr. Grandy, ultimately what we're saying is we got about $2.1 million roughly. You can grade them, and then we either got to go to the commission or figure something out ourselves, or.
Right, so we've got about $2.1 million, and we have about $2.1 million worth of work to produce fields with a fence and home plates and basic dugouts, but the bathrooms. So, whatever.
Okay.
But this 2.3 does not include restrooms or nothing?
Yes, sir.
Just what it says.
Just include just what it says.
Exactly, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That'll work.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And we will
Get back soon.
listen.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want these?
No, I
Please.
just want to. Oh, he
Yeah,
does.
please. Okay. Just Keith first workshop, if you don't mind.
This one right here is the existing conditions. So after they did the final grading, after the school was built, that's kind of, they've got some underground conduits for the light poles already there. So this is just showing.
Some of the infrastructure's already been.
So this is the existing, what's there now.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, James.
Can I
Okay.
just pull that?
Here, I'll just.
You have to object it.
Mr. Boyd, FY '23 budget.
Sure, you know, tonight, we're making progress as we did the last meeting, but I think tonight's hopefully objective is to address about 82 to 85% of the overall budget, which is the discussion around the salaries and wages. After that, we really then can, our final scheduled meeting, come back to those other items that are there that are not related to salaries and wages, and then kind of land the plane, so to speak, and get to that final destination. But tonight, big discussion about really big ideas around addressing the teacher salary scale, and then also for all employees, salary and wage increases. So,
Do we want to go keep going?
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, before they get firing away, we can't have one? No. I didn't know what I was doing with them. I didn't know why his hand to me. I was gonna say,
He's gonna hold it. percent.
I said, he's handing me, I'm like, what am I doing with that? My book.
Keep going.
Oh, was that how that works? Okay. Do we wanna, whenever you're ready, let's go around the room after you get done.
So you have an option, we originally advertised this meeting as a workshop like the others, but it has been adjusted to allow board action. You would have to go into session if you get to the point you want to take board action. So it has been advertised as a called meeting, but you can leave it out of session as a work session to have your discussions. And then if you get to the point you want to take action as a board, you just go in session and have formal action that you can take.
Okay.
But what's in front of you are, the request was, especially for the teacher salary schedule, was to come at the many versions and recommend a version based on the feedback from the last conversation we had in the work session and looking at all the options. What you have in addition to that top page that's entitled Proposed 2022-23 Certified Salary Schedule, which I have been referring to option Z because we've had so many options that we've looked at. This one incorporated the discussion from the last session around more or less for several years equal percent step increases between the years and all the way up through year 25 with some increases. So we have a 2% step increase between the years from year 0, first year teacher, to year 15. And then after year 15, instead of what had been done in the past where there was essentially many years of nothing and a step increase, then year 16 through 25 is a 1.5% increase between the steps. So the amounts between the steps, 2% through 0, 1 through 15, and 16 through 25. And as the previous scale, after 25 years, it stays the same. It is flat or no increase unless the board passes across the board increase. All of our certified teachers and those on the scale would stay at that level unless there's an increase across the board, which is not uncommon in most salary scales, inside, in education and outside. But on that, you see all of the lanes. We have not collapsed any of those because this is the model that we've used. The main problem with the teacher, the certified salary scale in Washington County was the fact that there were as many as 10 years where our employees from year, say, 11 till 20 had no annual built-in step increase. So, and then in addition to the fact that our competitive-wise, our salaries across the board, all education levels and years of experience are not competitive with our neighbors. And we compared, in a comparison sheet that we've looked at and I shared with you, we compared our closest neighbor within Washington County, Johnson City's salary scale, as well as a counterpart, a county, a comparable county, which was Sullivan County. And then we were notably different and below both of those. But with this proposed schedule, formerly called Option Z, it brings us into a very competitive situation with all of our neighbors, not just the two we compared with. Both as a new teacher that has a degree at a bachelor's level, we're still a little bit below the starting pay, but over time, we quickly, at the current salary scales in those other comparison counties, we quickly catch up to them with our, this proposed scale and surpass them right now as they have their set. The big thing too is all of those individuals that fall within those ranges on the current scale that there's no annual increase, it would bring them up to speed and put them into their step in their lane, their education level, and it could increase their salary quite significantly because we're addressing the structural problem with the salary scale. But the proposed cost, as we've talked about on this scale, would be $4.6 million. The discussion and the request was $4.5. We still can can bring this down, but what's incorporated into this proposed scale is the 2% step increase and the 1.5 after year 15. So we just hit the mark at being a little bit over the 4.5 million target, but with all those parameters, thought it was important we built this and show you what the 4.64 or 65 million would look like in this scale that's very competitive and really propels Washington County in our certified salary scale. You know, it advances our salary scale quite a bit, which I think was the ultimate goal.
Well, I think it's a good compromise between everything that we were talking about.
I do too, but I still would like for us to maybe think about next year making it more equitable and having it a 2% all the way across. Because yes, we do want to attract and maintain these first through 15, but then again, the 16 through 25, we want to reward them for not jumping ship and going to another system, because they are the backbone. They're the ones that have stayed with their system, even though the salary wasn't as comparable. And I want to see it more equitable maybe next year. This is a good start though, definitely. I'm happy with it.
The thing is, in these different ones, as you go further along in years, we get better than other systems. So they are being rewarded.
Good.
If you go further down the line, the higher we get and surpass Sullivan County and eventually surpass Johnson City. So they are being rewarded out of the chute.
Oh, I know they are initially, but still, I'm just.
At the end of what he's saying though.
Yeah,
At the end.
the last
it's still-
few years, they're definitely being rewarded because the pay scale's higher, where Johnson City goes to 0, and Sullivan County goes to next to nothing on theirs. So in your later years in these scales, they get greater than the competition. So they're being rewarded within this.
Did Sullivan County go past 25? I noticed Johnson City's, they listed 25 to 30, but nothing really changed. did it?
Same on all systems.
Same with all of them, okay.
I believe so, yes, ma'am. Sullivan County, there was some, as Mr. Riddle pointed out, some very small, less than 1% increases after 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you see a 0.2, 0.2, and then final year 30, between 29 and 30 is 0.3. But in the end run, with this proposed scale, to do a direct comparison, with this scale, an individual that has a master's in 30 years in Washington County under this scale would end up at a salary level that is $9,000 more than Sullivan County's end salary.
That's great.
Currently.
They're not going to
Now,
sit idle.
No, they're not going to, she's right, Johnson City's not going to.
Yeah, I mean, they'll continue to raise it, which they
Right.
should, as far
Exactly.
as all of us, struggling to
Remain competitive.
recruit and
Right.
retain in the field of education, period, in public education. But that what this scale would reflect. So to address, they may have those 0.2s, but at some point, very quickly, this proposed scale passes them and stays past them quite significantly right now until there's an adjustment made by them and others.
That's great.
And they're making adjustments now. They're talking about making adjustments already, so.
Everyone is and should be.
Yes, yes, but ours has been stagnant, so.
For years, yes.
The main thing, of course, is the problem identified and well-known by the board and others about how it was structured and that flat amount for several years in a row, in addition to just the fact that it was below our neighbors, period. So addressing the structure and raising up the salary puts the board and future boards in a position, as you address it, it'll do it more equitably across the years of experience as well as the years, the education levels.
That's what I want, if it works out that way, because when you see it, and it's 2%, year 1 through 15, and then 1.5.
Chad wants
But
to
if it
speak
works out.
whenever you get done.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was saying whenever he's been patient.
The only thing I looked at all these against each other, and I still like it option A better because it gets the money in their hands quicker. So if you're, and you get it earlier in your career. And if you make $2,000 more earlier in your career, for the next 10 years, that's $20,000 you can put in your pocket instead of waiting to get an extra $2,000 or $3,000, or, well, in some cases, I see up to $7,000, depending on where you're at on this scale, at the end of your career. So I'm more of a, just my opinion, but I'm more of an A man, just laying these out and grading them against each other. That was just a comment I wanted to make. I mean, I do think, you know, that we're gonna be ahead of Sullivan County and Johnson City after time goes by, and we're not gonna stay stagnant. You know, now that we've had the courage to do this or whatever, had the opportunity to do this, however you wanna say it, we're gonna continue to look at this. I mean, it's not something we're just gonna lay down and not worry about for, you know, some time, so.
I appreciate all the work that's been done on this, and I think it's a great thing. And I'm very excited for our employees that we're able to do this due to the circumstances and things. I think it's wonderful. And I know whatever we do, I know they're going to appreciate it. You know, I think it's wonderful. I like Z. If everybody wanted to do Z, I'm okay with it. In my personal opinion, in my studies, I'm kind of like Chad. So 78% of our workforce in this scale is masters and below. So that's 78%. And that 78% is going to be more heavily impacted immediately with this. It takes between 21 and 22 years for Z scale to catch up on the bachelor's degree. On a master's degree, it takes between 15 and 16 years to catch up. Like he was saying, your salary is immediately impacted in your early years. It also addresses your long-term people because they're getting a significant raise. Either one you go with, it's significant. I mean, if we weren't doing this, no one would be getting a significant, but everybody on this paper is getting a significant, substantial raise. So there's people getting $9,000, $10,000 a year from now on. So if you look at that versus, you know, where we've got in age is $600 extra a year, I'd take $8,000 plus $600 a year for 5 years over nothing every year. That's a lot. That's substantial. So to get to the point, like I say, the almost 80% are going to be heavily impacted by option A immediately. This option Z works on up the scale, and your percentages work better with a higher salary. That's just the numbers. That's the way it works. So just my opinion with the immediate impact to keep people in these earlier years and be competitive, I kind of like A a little better. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble.
See, here's the problem. We train them, we get them in the right direction, and then they're jumping ship in the mid. It's not the start, it's the mid years that's causing us the problem. And so with it being on the front end, that's great for new teachers. And that's wonderful to recruit them. But we also have to retain them.
But you are still ahead of the game.
I understand you all keep saying ahead of the game, but I'm telling you, nobody's going to sit stagnant. So we're really not going to be ahead of the game in probably 2 years.
But I mean, we're not
or
gonna sit-
some of them may not be even ahead of the game when Johnson City gets done with theirs, or somebody else gets done with theirs. Everybody is going to be putting more money into this year because there is an issue with retaining and recruiting. So that's
So
the
you
way I
saying
feel.
we ain't putting enough money in?
No, I'm saying that if you depend on these first 5 or 6 years, that's not going to keep your retention.
It's
So
20
what do you
years.
think?
20 years.
20 years.
But no,
It's not 5 or 6, it's 20.
but then I'm a percentage lady. I like the percentages better.
I like the percentages.
And
better
so I like this Z because it is a percentage, not just a flat rate.
than- I do too.
You know, just for full awareness, and I know that you are, this is the starting point. So to maintain that flat rate after this year, if the board and future boards do a % increase, then all of those steps will increase accordingly. They would not stay at 1,075.
And we've also talked about, we're gonna hit a little bit of a recession here. So there may be times we won't be adding that extra percentage, so but the step is still there. And we have 73 that's 25 or plus. Is that right? Did I say that right? That have 25 years plus in?
Yeah.
So we're looking at a huge turnover in the next 2 or 3 years, I would say. I mean, with 85 coming to that thing. I now know why 85 showed up, because there's 73 in that 20 to 25 year, and they're starting to prepare. So in the next 5 years, we're looking at a turnover, so we need to be able to retain.
Comparing the two scales, where the differentiation is, until year 15, it's higher in every place. A is higher than Z. It's from 16 on where the difference. So, I mean, that's just, you draw a line, that's where the line is between the two scales. I could convert this, Mr. Hill could, and instead of the 1075, we can convert that to a percentage and show it in the same way. It would be a smaller percentage than the 2% for some. Now, early years, it might be more.
So are we down to A and Z? A to Z?
Well, that sounds like it's the consensus. Let's see what Mitchell has to say.
I think our challenge is new teachers and teachers mid-career. I think that's where our challenge is, and for that reason, one, I like A. The second reason is if you use Z, and I certainly do appreciate the work that our 25-plus year teachers have put into play, but I've never been in a business or an organization that hadn't gotten bought out or something traditionally significantly changed, where you end up with $14,000 raises in 1 year for doing nothing different. It just runs us significantly above Sullivan and County, Washington, Johnson City. So I think that the numbers, while they're certainly great for getting to that point of creating that top 5 years for retirement and all that stuff, there's a cost to it, to the district and to the taxpayers. And for those reasons, I think I'm leaning towards option A.
Could we not, with option A, just for example, in a couple years or a year or whatever, we can revisit this thing, and then, year 16 to 25, we may adjust that. As our staff moves up, we can adjust that figure, because you're a percentage person, I'm a bottom line person. So the number down here on the sheet's what I'm looking at. The bottom line is what goes in your pocket, and that's what matters to me. But we can adjust that as needed to help them. Right now, we're just got to get out of the chute. And we've got to do it in the most impactful and best economic savings way we can do. We've only got so much money. The $8 million out there, it's out there. That you can't spend money you don't have. We don't have that. It may never happen. Hopefully it does. Right now, we can stomach this, and do it in the most impactful, beneficial way we can. That's why I like the A as well. I just think we're making the most impact with the least amount of money, and it's immediate. Everybody sees it, everybody gets it. And then you can adjust your numbers in a couple of years. If we do get more money and more funding, this gets us out of the chute, and this makes it easier to adjust. And I'd also like to see us narrow down our lanes to make this thing a little more
Now
simple.
that I do.
Yes, most definitely.
Maybe adopt this, and I don't know, maybe we'd have to look at to make sure nobody's negatively impacted to do that. But narrow these lanes down a little bit, make it a little more simpler. And then in the future, it'd be easier to adjust and revisit this thing, and we could, scale it again if we need to.
Chad?
Yeah, we need to hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you want to impact the most of the staff from 20 years back tomorrow, option A does a better job of that than option Z. There's more people that get affected tomorrow by option A getting a raise than option Z, straight off the bat.
And it's also
And
$308,000.
for the long-term deal, you'd make more money earlier, and you'd make more money in the name of the game. Now, if you move somewhere else, want to go somewhere else, I mean, we're never going to be able to stop that, but I think they could put more money in their pocket going home tomorrow.
So with me, I think Z is a long-term plan. It's not only planning for immediate, but it's in planning for future-wise. And, you know, we started talking about these seasoned people up here, the 17, 18 to 25. Those are the people who are training our teachers. Those are the people who are mentoring them. And so we do need them. I mean, because I can promise you, I went to school. I have an education degree. It did not prepare me for the classroom. You know, it doesn't, you know, you have lots of knowledge, but when those laws are looking at you, you're not prepared. Those people that mentor you, that's who prepares.
I do like the idea that we are going to revisit this, because I will have to tell you, since I've been on the board in 16, nothing has been discussed. And when I was a teacher in this system, very little had been done to improve the salary schedule. So that will be an improvement.
You're gonna be a big part of it, Mary
I'm
Beth.
hoping so.
Okay, so how do you gonna handle this to move forward?
Well, if you all want, you know, to take formal action on the proposed certified salary schedule, you would have to, I think, go into session. And if you choose to do that, then the next conversation will be around the discussion around the non-certified staff and how you want to proceed with the salary and wage increase for that.
All right, Mr. Fleener,
I'd like to make, if you're going to entertain one.
how do we formally enter into that?
You call us into session?
Just like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll call this Washington County Board of Education into session. Mr. Fleener.
I'd like, if you'll entertain it, I'd like to make a motion that we enter into the proposed option A.
Okay, motion and a second for option A. Any,
Can we,
not that we've ain't already discussed it for a while, but anything else before we vote on it?
Well, I would like another option, but I don't want to vote against the raise, I mean, of the salary. Does that make
How many more
sense?
options do you want?
Well, I mean, can we not vote between A and Z?
We
Is
don't
that
have
possible? Okay, so I'm gonna have to vote for this one, even though I don't think it's as equitable as the other, because I don't want to appear voting no. Does that make sense?
just vote yes.
Just vote yes, all right.
You change your vote at the end, I think yours don't.
Mr.
I feel
Irvin.
like we need, I mean, you've got your first year teachers, year 6, 47 on the A, year 6 is 46, that's roughly $1,000. Year 10 is 52. Year 10
$1,711 difference.
Mike's got a list over here if you want to read it, all the differences.
On option,
Year 10 is 50,000, year 10 here is 52,000, so that's
$1,711 more.
Yeah.
At 15, you're $1,850 more. At 20, you're $557 more.
So we've got to go over 20 to change it.
So I think, did somebody ask Mr. Boyd what his?
Z.
Well, and I was recommending that based on the discussion around the 2% and the 1.5% in between the steps.
All right,
Well, I'd like to make a motion for Z.
we already got a motion and a second. And you did, you did make it.
Let's vote.
Let's vote, Jennifer. Let's vote on A. If you don't want A, vote no,
Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call.
please.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
No.
Ms. Buchanan?
No.
Ms. Dellinger?
No.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Carries with 3 noes.
Okay. So now we move to, do we want to work on any of that today, or do you want to go back and regroup and?
Well, the non-certified, I mean, so that Mr. Hill and I can really tie down the
Yeah.
exact amounts.
Let's do it while we're here.
When we bring it back and we look at the rest of those budget items that are recurring expenses or fixed costs to finalize, this was a big part of it. It's 4.4 million, almost 4.4 million. But we have other staff, and what was asked was the 6% across the board to all their employees outside of this scale. And Mr. Hale, that was 680,000.
Let me give you the exact number. It is 693,660.
So that adds to that total cost of almost $700,000 in additional, but that would be a 6% on the current scale, salary and wages of everyone that falls outside of the certified scale. With the one big exception, we did pull out the senior leadership, the chief, deputy chiefs, the principals, and the assistant principals. They're not reflected currently in that $4.33 million. We could put them back in and utilize, based on board policy, the way that their salaries are calculated and show the cost separately for them. But we were focused completely on everyone that would be addressed as, as the teacher salary scale.
Whitney?
Could we have the total figure for a 5%, please?
Times 7.
Not 6, but 5%. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's 5%.
Okay.
That's the total.
To 578.
578.50.
Is that all, Whitney?
That is.
Chad?
Can, the next meeting that we come back to on this non-certified staff before we make a decision, can we also look and see what the, kind of gauge what the principal salaries and stuff is with our area people?
We've been working on that. I just felt like we needed to focus on the teacher certified scale to get competitive in those areas with the same comparisons. It would be a significant change in how we pay our principals and our assistant principals and our district leadership staff.
So what we just passed, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead, Mike wants to talk, Whitney's gonna talk, Mike wants to talk.
what we just talked about on option A, you'll meet with the collaborative conference and make sure that they're okay with that, and then come back before we pass the whole budget, which will have this into it.
What was the number for the option A? 4.1?
3.3.
4.33, okay.
Who was that, Mike, Whitney?
I was just gonna say, I'd like to keep what we're doing separate. In other words, we just did the certified, I'd like to keep the non-certified next. Then do our principals, assistant, and then do
Right. So, yes, sir. The
I mean,
two
to me,
options would be, of course, in calculating all of those that I mentioned in those categories, assistant, principals, and the senior leadership, certified senior leadership, it's in your board policy currently. So as the teacher scale changed, calculating would show those amounts. That would be one way, and then the other way would be creating a complete different scale for all three categories.
That's what I.
Based on what
do.
where their baseline might be,
Right.
to be fair, they certainly should be considered for the same kind of equalization that we talked about with our teachers, but pulling them out of the teacher scale and paying them for those levels. And then quite honestly, I'm pretty adamant about, we have a scale that's based on experience. It should be set in a way that you hire somebody into those roles, and then their experience in that particular role determines how they advance, not because they've been a teacher for 30 years or 10 or 15. They're going into a role that's essential for them to be successful as a leader. but they're going into a role that they have never done before.
Well, and I like it too, where you keep them three separate as a corporate package is being dealt with day to day, instead of, you know.
And they're not part of the collaborative conferencing
Right.
process by law and stated in the law. Those groups are management anyway, so they're not part of that conferencing piece.
So Mike, can I ask you, are you saying that you would like to take care of the teachers this year and then move
Oh,
on
no,
to
no,
the?
no. I don't want to do them all together.
Just want to separate them, you're
I want to
acting on
separate
each different group.
Okay, so you're not saying do one year, do
No,
one the
no,
next, do the,
no.
you're just saying, gotcha.
Right. We just did the teachers. I want to do the non-certified next, then I
Okay.
want to do the.
All right, so
Let
they're
me-
not on the teacher scale. They're
They have
separate.
been, and your
They
policy currently has them there, how they're calculated. But, you know, it would be a good idea whether this year or the next year, and that we create a separate standing scale for each of those groups.
So this year, they're fine the way they are, and then,
It depends on the board's
okay.
preference and
And that's what we're
decision.
going to look at.
I
Oh, okay.
suggest that we're making a lot of adjustments now, and we look at, and fairly look at theirs, and we have a separate proposed at our next meeting next week.
Because I want to be fair to all three,
Yeah.
you know, not just one or
Well,
whatever.
last year, we made them 12 months, which was a little bit different from a.
Well, they also
They
got
a raise.
5,000.
Yeah, they got a raise,
And
but it
then the
was a
assistants got
different.
3.
Right,
And it increased the number of days of their
Right.
contract.
right.
Well, true, yeah.
Let me say yes, or ask yes, or say it either one. So, know this going forward, so we're just approved $4.3 million. We are looking at a couple other things, but our total we wanted to spend was, what did we say last meeting?
There was a lot of things said about
4.3, 4.5,
No, I mean, like, was it 7
4.5.
million, 5 million, 6 million?
Well, I suggested we spend 4.5 on certified, 700 on non-certified. And that's what we was going to work on today.
So can we not discuss the 700?
I would, if the board feels inclined, I think you're in a position now, whether it's a 6% or some other percent, if you will just give us direction.
Yes.
And if you want to take formal action, that'd be helpful. And then we would have that, another large section of the budget determined.
I'd like to
What was
do
the
that,
6%
Whitney.
amount?
693, 660.
Okay, 578 was.
Whitney?
So the non-certified, we're going to do 1% this year, and that would give us time to study surrounding salaries, or are you going to have that for us?
Well, there's no way I can have that. I think the idea of approach of doing the across-the-board significant increase of that percentage, and then we really need to dive in and look at these. And Mr. Hale's done a lot of work since the time he's been here.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Mr. Hale's done a lot of
You wanna
work.
say that again? But I think there's room for us to really look at those scales and then, and do the study and a comparison, and then in next year's budget, that's the time to do the structural changes and improvements to those scales. Do their wage and salary increases as you intend to or plan on doing. But next year, to do it in a good way, in the right way, spend the next year really looking closely at those comparisons and come forward with those proposed changes.
So we have the money to give them a 6%, don't we? I mean, if we want to spend that.
Well, that's if the board chooses. I mean, that's yes, ma'am.
Well, I make a motion,
Hold on,
we don't want to make a motion?
You got more people wanting to talk before we make
All right.
motions.
I like to see this.
Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was wanting to make a motion, so it really wouldn't be fair.
Oh, no, don't bother me.
Well, no, I just have been patiently holding my hand up over here, but I wasn't going to jump in
He
front
usually just
of
don't jump in there. He
Yeah,
does. He does. Mine.
I guess my only thought is, since we passed the 4.3, then if we do the 6% for the non-certified, and I may be jumping ahead, but then if you go back to your book and do your
You're jumping ahead.
your other sections that's reoccurring, and then the wants, we're already at 6.4.
That's why I wanted to get this out of
And
the
we're
way
not
before
even
we
got to
anything else.
to what the
Right.
school's needs are.
Yeah, and you may
So,
not get there.
Right, but I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to go ahead and get this out of the way. Mr. Irvin?
Well, I've always wanted to try to get the employee that's making $9, $10 an hour's pay to at least 12. You know, so I don't know what that would cost to get those people paid up. And that would be bigger than a 6% pay increase for them. But we're losing employees because they can go anywhere else, you know, and make more money. So, and we're short on cafeteria workers, instructional assistants, we're hurting. So we need to really focus on that.
I don't disagree at all. I guess my question is on that, I mean, I know what I'd do. I know what I'd do, but whose feelings are you gonna hurt? And who's gonna, because there's, I mean, how many different levels, like 30, I don't know.
Well, I don't know how many employees
Who's
we
gonna
have
sit
here.
That was my question, is how many employees do we have that are below $10 or less?
Very few below 10.
Yeah.
There's only entry level and one or two of the pay scales.
Well,
and
the
staggered
state
structure.
made us raise everybody's 10 and above, didn't it?
Not to classify.
No, not the classified.
So my question is, how do you, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't know how in the world you'd do that, because that means if you've only got X amount of money, somebody ain't getting nothing.
That's why
That's what I think
Well,
we're
they're
gonna do
doing a
next
study.
year.
So
They're,
we
they're
can figure
gonna,
out.
you know, that person's gonna get, you're gonna up their pay $12. So we're going, the bottom dollar is $12. All right, if you're making $11.50, you're gonna get $12. If you're making $10.50, you're getting $12. Everything's gonna be $12.
All right, hold on a
And then we
minute.
start from that.
So.
Because look what we spend
Start
on these,
something.
on the teachers.
I got an idea. So what about, Brad, do you have a way to know how many employees we have under 12?
Not tonight.
Okay, so what if we did, I'm just throwing this out there, might be a bad idea. What if we did everybody under 12, we bring them up, and everybody from 12 and above gets a percent, and see what that number is? Is that fair?
Well, we don't know how much work that's gonna be on Brad, though.
Look at them shoulders on that boy. Is that crazy? Is that a bad idea?
It'll be a lot of work.
But
I'll have to pull my staff off of some of the regular duties to do that.
Okay.
That's the reason why I like Whitney's idea. I'd rather go with the percentage across the board, and then next year give them time to restructure that whole pay scale.
And let
I think we need to
them
know
come
what
up
we're
with that.
doing instead of shooting from the hip.
Right.
I think we need to know.
'Cause
The only
you
way
know-
we're gonna know is if we get information, study, and have a little time with it. And then we can make it right.
Well,
We're helping right now, but we can make it right later.
Because I don't want to do something right now just out of the instinct. I'd rather do like they did the teachers. You know, if we got a $10 employee making $13.50 in Sullivan County, I'd like for it to be as close as we can to $13.50
what
instead of
percent
12.
ain't gonna do that?
No.
So our lowest, well, one of our lowest groups, their pay scale starts at $10.80 per hour. And those are instructional assistants.
There's some very hardworking instructional assistants.
So,
in your system.
and an instructional assistant would have to be in that role for 11 years, 12 years, before they surpass $12 an hour. So a 12-year on the scale for our instructional assistant is 7.5 hours a day, is $12.10. After they've been working in that environment and learning and supporting for 12 years. So everybody that falls in that category below that would be that group we're talking about, raising them up to 12. And those are, that would be one of our largest groups of classified staff is our instructional assistants.
Well,
And
let's
it's-
go back to what Jason was saying. If we knew the number,
Yeah,
you know,
there's quite a few of those, yeah.
It seems like over the past 4 or 5 years, each group has come and asked for their specific group, like with food service, like with maintenance, everybody, but nobody has done anything for these instructional assistants.
I'm
Nobody has
all
asked
about bringing them all up to 12, but we don't have the data. We gotta have, I agree with Whitney, we gotta have the
We gotta know
data.
what that's gonna cost.
If,
Well, I know.
if I might make it, you know, certainly it would be great if you all could consider a decision, but I don't believe that would be the best thing to do tonight. If you will allow me to work with Brad, and I don't want him to pull his staff off their normal duties. I mean, we gotta make payroll, so, and pay bills on time and keep things rolling. If Brad can give me the information and he and I work together, we can identify everyone that's below 12 and do an analysis, just what that would cost. And bring that back to you at our next scheduled meeting, which is next Tuesday.
All right, let me ask this, so if you do that then, so just because you know, you better ask your questions now, but so you don't get caught off guard. But I guess my question would be, okay, hypothetically, we did that, it's $400,000. So Mike's saying the last meeting we said 700,000. So, you know, with what's left, what do we get percentage wise for 300,000? You see what
How many
I'm saying?
people-
We can break it down to
Have
that,
something
and then
to-
still have the option, the $693,000 option of the across-the-board percent raise also. But because of, you know, we have not done those, because it is quite extensive, and if Brad would just give me the spreadsheet, I'll go through and do it, so he doesn't have to. And just to get that number, of how many below 12 and what it would, and moving them up, what it would cost.
That would be good.
Mr. Fleener?
Well, you said 1080 is the lowest paid person at this, correct?
Based on this scale, with the proposed 6% raise, so that's not the,
Oh,
After the 6.
after.
I believe,
So before that, if you work 40 hours a week, it's $432. If you work for 10 months, that'd be 40 weeks roughly. Your total is $17,280. Where we were going back last time, and I'm just going back to my little scribbly notes, where we figured the 6% raise at $693,660, and we had 470 employees, and we figured, or I figured, it was $1,475. That bottom person would almost get a 10, that's what, 8.5% raise? What is the, I guess what I'm asking is, what's the cons about dividing 470 into 693, 660? Tell me where that's wrong, or what.
first of all, information I gave you, because I was looking at my phone, was wrong.
Oh,
We have we have a lot of scales, just like we do with our teachers.
Yeah, they're all, I mean. we
So
got
next
all-
to it, we have two classifications of instructional assistants. One that's with certification, one without. The without certification, which is the majority of our instructional assistants, the actual starting rate is $9.73,
okay.
which equals $13,500 a year with a 185-day contract.
So, I mean, they need to get over a 10% raise to that
We
1475.
should actually have 3 because there
But
should be a
special ed is
sched.
higher.
That's
Yes.
56.
Special ed's higher. I was
Yes.
just identifying the lowest.
Oh, okay. I was just like,
Yeah,
we
special
have 3
education
classifications
is
of
higher.
A's.
Which, you know, it should be in those environments. Higher
It's-
training
oh,
demands.
absolutely. I just-
What are you thinking?
So are
Chad?
those included in that?
Well, I just identified the lowest pay
The lowest
scale,
paid.
and that's our instructional assistants, on what I'm looking at. But I inadvertently only said the $10.80 was the certified person in that role. The non-certified is less.
I already got another idea. Thinking about what Chad's saying, so, and Keith's saying.
All those up to 12.
What if we give, and I mean, I don't know if this is okay or not, but what's it take to bring a $9 or $10 an hour person up to $12? What I'm gonna say is, I don't know what'd be wrong with everybody under X amount gets, and you still gotta bring us the totals, whatever percent raise that is to get them there, and then everybody above it gets flat. 2, 3, 5, whatever you,
I like that.
and that way that takes care of.
The board can,
Pretty
that's,
close.
that's an option. We
Is that a
can,
bad idea?
I'm looking
So
at,
if you make
Jason,
it
I'm
12.
looking at this, custodian salaries, for example, and our support salaries. They start at 1022 and it goes to 1196 after 17 years. So you're going to, and I don't disagree with moving that $9, $10, $11 number to 12. And then, but that's where the numbers are now. And then, how do you factor in, the next guy that's been there for 18 years and was getting $2 an hour more than the guy that just started? That's, in this case, it's, 20%.
Yeah.
But you'd have to roll all the way up the scale.
I'm saying that, and I say it, but $15, if it takes 8% to get the $10 an hour guy there, the $15 an hour guy might not get but 2% this year. Because next year, you're gonna start all over, and you may go back to a straight percentage across the board. I don't know.
well, we can tell you the cost of moving all those up to 12 and applying 6% to everyone above that. And we can tell you what that looks like. I will say the current scales are based on an increment of each year being 1%. So it'll change that at least to present, and we'd have to clean up the scales if we want those equal steps between the years.
So I just want to clarify what Jason said. This is what I heard, so I want to know that that's what you meant. Bring everybody up to $11, $12 an hour, and then put everybody else, go ahead and use our scale 1% all the way up. That's going to change everybody's.
Well, I'm saying, to be fair, yes, whatever it takes to get, just like we're doing the teachers, whatever it takes to get them up to where they can at least make $12 an hour, and then everybody above that might just get a flat 2%, something of that nature.
So we're just moving the base
Yes.
and adding the percent on. See how I percent.
Jason, I'm going to have to ask a question. I'm going to have to ask a question here. An example on the custodial pay scale that Mitch was referring to, it starts at $10.22 an hour. It hits the $12 an hour mark at year 18 at $12.06. So if we're moving at the 12 minimum, are we moving years 0 through year 17 all to $12 an hour? So that means you won't get any step increase for 17 years. And then you just got to think of that. So I'll just need some direction in how to handle the step increase in years 0 through 17 in that case.
Well,
if there is, so.
If you don't do it that way, you're never going to be able to do it because it's not fair. In other words, you can't take even, I know what you're saying, the 18-year guy's still just making 12. Well, you can't give him 20 because you don't have.
Well, I'm referring to years 0 through 17. If we make that $12 an hour for all 17 years, you've just eliminated a step. You've raised it, but are we going to have it at $12 an hour for all years 1 through 17? I guess is that what it's?
That's what I do.
Well,
why can't you go $12 then do a 1 or 2%?
Well, I can if the board says to.
From here on.
Yeah, from here on.
So
we just changed their pay. It's all we've done. We changed their pay. We're still keeping the step increases that they got. We just raised people.
And the people's been here 15 years, Brad, are not going to love that, I don't guess. But you're never going to fix it if you don't.
Well, I just need to know how to structure the scale, because if we say $12 minimum at year 0, are you keeping it at $12 all the way up through year 17? Or are you going to step it up? So now what we're doing.
So it'd be 1% because that's what it is right now.
Okay. So that keeps the same structure in place. So what we're doing is we're raising year 0 to $12 an hour,
Yes.
maintaining the same step increase. Okay, for all pay scales that
That's
are
what
below
I
12.
understand.
Is that okay?
Jason just.
Okay.
That's what I
It'll
understood
be-
for Jason
it'll
to
have-
say. Is why I was clarifying it.
We can show you all the rest.
Every bit of it's recurring.
Now, how will you do bus drivers?
Bus drivers are different. They work usually a maximum of 4 hours a day. So they get a minimum, the code 1 rate is I think 63. So if you do an hourly rate, they're already making $15 an hour. Now, some bus drivers might have a longer route. Maybe you have one bus driver that works 4.5 hours a day. But most of them, I think, are 1 to maybe hour routes on average or less. Dr. Adams
So the only
could
way
tell
to
us
affect
that.
them is across the board raise.
Yeah, if you do a flat raise, what's been done in the past is like, let's say you do a 6% raise for anybody not affected by what you're talking about with the minimum. If you did a 6%, then we would take the existing bus driver scale and up it by 6%. So,
And that would be from 60 to 63.
yeah, I think it's like 63, or 62 for the first route right now, so it'd be 6% above
I
that.
just
So
look
that'd
at
raise it to like-
their pay, and it's just, I mean, it's like I don't see nothing but just a yearly average.
Well, that's based on those route costs.
Okay.
It's 185 days, so some of them will have 2 routes, so there'll be a code 2.
Okay, I see
Some
what
will be
you're
a
saying.
code 1, and the code 2 is a little over $80 a day. So for example, the $80, 6%, that'd be like nearly $5, $4.80, that would raise to like $85 a day. And if it's 63, you're gonna raise that to $67 a day, $67 a day.
So my understanding when we started this process is we were gonna start with the teachers this year. Then next year we were gonna roll into somebody else's, so it was gradually giving us each year. And that way they would rotate throughout the years on which ones we looked at and managed the step increases on. And we've gone away from that at this point. And I don't know that our budget can sustain this year those huge across the board. So my question is since we fixed the teachers and we have looked at everybody else's over the past few years since Brad's been here, because he's been bringing that to us, can we not just do a 3 or 4% raise and then look at the next one next year and complete it until then? Would that help us any? I mean, because like Brad said, I don't see us being able to sustain that money. I mean, we've already said that we were gonna do 4.5 and we're at 4.3 on the teachers' scale. I mean, if we need to look at the IAs this year in conjunction with the teachers, because they haven't been looked at.
I thought it was like a 6
Yeah,
total.
6%.
Well, that had been
was at
talked
7.
about when we were trying to talk about the teachers instead of,
Yeah.
we kept going off on a rabbit hole with those.
That's what we had
Basically
said
what
last
Bring
week.
everything to
Yeah.
12.
We put a cap on the teachers at 4.5, and we spent 4,339.
I'm saying,
And then if we do the non-certified, we're at 693, 660.
if you bring everybody up to 12 and then what's left,
Split it amongst. Now, I will say this, and yes, you're right, that's what we said, that ain't what we did. We went away from that. We went away from that last week.
I was just trying to get us back on track.
I know, you do a good job, and we don't have to, we can vote no. I don't know, I mean, but I think, back to what Whitney said a while ago, with referring to what you're saying, you really do need a lot of information. And I don't know that it's a good steward just to throw a % out there and say, we'll get it next year. Or do we spend another week and try to get it, I mean.
Oh, I don't care to spend another week on it or any, that time doesn't, I'm just saying we're running out of money
Well,
quickly
we're running
with
out of
our
time.
quarter.
We're running out of
Yes,
time, too.
we are,
only have a
but,
week left.
well,
Well, if we could get the numbers for our next meeting, we know what 6% is. If we can see what a $12 looks like, and then maybe a percentage above that, so we'll have 2 options to maybe choose from.
What percentage do you want me to use for,
Above the 12 or?
yeah, for any that's not affected by
Well, we
the-
really would need to know how much the 12 is gonna cost
Yeah.
us. I mean, that's a variable we need to know, because it might eat it all up. Who knows?
Well, and
I
that's
don't
what,
know how
that,
many
I think
employees-
that's what you gotta be prepared for. If the 12 eats it all up, are you okay with nobody else getting anything else?
Well, no, then you go back to the 6%, and then you take your time and get your data and restructure the salaries.
Then we've got to figure out exactly what total we want to spend to. We want to spend 7 million total, we want to spend 9 million.
I
We
thought we
still got
said
the
6.
That's what I'm saying, we still got that to add to what we're doing.
Chad, you had
Just
something?
giving you a figure, if you went with the not without certification at $9.73, and you give them a 3% raise, you bumped them up less than 30 cents an hour.
That's not gonna cut it.
That's $12.
That's not cut it, but
Holy.
You need like a 20% raise.
I'm just saying, that's.
Well, that's why I'm
if you
saying
do
you
a-
need to see what they make
Yeah.
and then adjust all of it
Yeah,
to what it should be versus what.
because just coming in there and saying, well, we're just gonna give them a 3% raise, you give somebody a $12 an hour, or $12 a week jump. No, that's not what anybody wants to do, you know, so I would just go back and do your homework. You can do a lot of these figures, even with my silly math. I think you'll see something there.
So, did we not say we were comfortable with $6 million, Brad? What did we say? I know we talked about that.
no.
You said eight.
No, you said
Eight was
but-
the amount of money we anticipate if they pass the new funding model, the Tennessee Investing and Student Achievement Funding model that's being discussed on the floor, or was discussed, I believe, today, so I don't know what the outcome of that was.
But we can't,
That's next year.
we ain't got it.
Okay.
That's next year.
So 7.
Yeah, that doesn't get implemented until.
I like
24.
7, Mary Beth.
7.
You're gonna need it if you're gonna do anything.
I know.
Annette, do you have something else?
Well, okay, so we've talked about IAs and we've talked about non-certified. Are we putting everybody in the lump sum and the IAs are in that lump sum? Because
Everybody
we're
that's
throwing
below
out,
12.
we're throwing out groups of people and then it comes back to
Are you talking about
uncertified.
across the
So
board or the $12?
I'm talking about the $12. If we change $12 to base, is that everybody
That's everybody's scale that's not been.
non-certified across the board? CAF 2 workers, bus drivers, everybody's.
Bus drivers, you can figure like that.
Custodians.
Because they're already over $12 an hour.
Okay.
Everybody that's below 12, we would look at what it would cost by employee. If they're below 12, bring them up and what that cost would be. And I guess in addition, beyond that,
The step,
pushing the step out like it's currently calculated 1%.
right.
Yes.
You got
That's on-
14 pay scales is what this will affect system-wide.
Yeah, but $12 an hour is just IAs, custodians,
There's
School
a
nutrition.
total of.
and school nutrition. That's the three departments.
Well, there's some others. It's a total of 14 pay scales. You've got some school
Yeah, but I mean,
Secretaries,
they're below
accountants.
$12 an hour. Everybody else is above 12.
There's
Except the three,
some
right?
others. Custodians, you've got some school secretary scales that start out below 12.
Uh-huh.
So it's a total of 14 different
So
pay
it's gonna
scales.
move everybody's scale.
That's on those 14. Yeah, anybody that's on those 14 pay scales.
And that would, it would move if there was a percent raise across the board, but, this is gonna basically reconfigure everyone.
So Brad, are you talking about 200 people?
Yeah, how many people is it we gonna affect
We can do
going
some
to 12?
breakdown.
There's,
Let me ask you this first, though.
okay.
We're talking about moving these folks that are like 10 an hour to 12 in these particular pay scales. What if you have a pay scale where your first year is $12? It's not gonna change, right?
Not in
A
this.
different, a different pay
based on
scale.
that.
Well,
Just
not
the
now
based
you-
on
you've
euros.
moved- You've moved some variable, you've equalized different job functions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not moving anybody's pay outside of those 14 scales I
Which
just
can be
mentioned.
problematic for you.
Well, like Jerry said a while ago, somebody that's been here 15 years, it's only making 12. They're still just gonna be making 12.
I get that piece of it.
I mean, I know that ain't pretty.
I was
but-
just talking about.
Well, and that's why I asked what percentage you wanted to use, outside of this, and Whitney had said, we've got to get this total first to know what percentage, you all would go for any of the other classified employees that's not affected.
That's why I said we do the percentage this year, give ourselves time to adjust this and have plenty of time to gather information, look at all the different scales and how they're affected.
And rotate them.
And probably get that next year.
That's probably gonna be.
I think in long range, we're going long term here, and we're trying to fix these things. You can only afford to do so much of it at once.
But I don't want to rush it and get it wrong either.
Right.
Right.
Well, the
Even
other
if I'm not
thing,
sitting here this year, I don't want it to be wrong.
the other piece of that is if you'll wait, Brad can look at that over the next 15 years, what that does.
Right.
Instead of just,
If my math is right, if we have an average of 200 people, 200 employees, it's less than 12, and an average of $3 per person to get them up to 12, we're talking $1 million.
So if you, okay.
That's taking the $3 average of.
So you took them up $1 million and then you just raised your base pay $4.5 million.
But that $1 million is only for the employees that's $12 less. We don't affect the other 200.
If you got
No.
200 employees at $12 an hour, how much is that?
Well, we don't know. We just
No,
have to take
we
your
do know.
average.
$12 an hour times 200 employees, period.
2,400
That's 2,400.
a week.
All right, then that's what the.
An hour. Times 40 is 809.60 a week.
Yeah, times 40 weeks.
It's almost $40 million.
You better hold off on that.
So what I'm hearing, I mean, we can work on getting that information to you
For me.
next week, and you can look at it and make a motion next week. We'll have it advertised as a called meeting. Also, on the calendar, we have the 28th as the last possible meeting for action before we are, obligated to give an approved budget to the mayor by May 1st.
Are we going to discuss Tuesday at our workshop? Are we going to discuss this, or is it?
No, that's why, no action tonight. We will bring back
That's what
the
I was going to say.
information.
So it might not be necessary to have the 28th. Is that what you?
If the board can complete the budget business,
So it's
then-
tentative?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So our workshop's going to be a workshop / called?
We'll advertise it as called so that the board can be in a position to
Take
take
action.
action. Yes, ma'am. And yes, sir. We will get that information that you've asked for, the $12. We'll show the cost. And then also remember, that's another big item, but then we also need to address those fixed costs that are in the budget and go down through there and finalize that Tuesday if possible.
Should we do
have
that?
Thursday, but we can, if we can get it done Tuesday, that would be wonderful.
Is that something, Jerry, we can do right now or not?
You can if you would like.
Well, the way this is going, we ain't gonna get all this done in 2 more meetings if we don't get something done. And if that's something that's pretty cut and dry, I was just thinking, hit it and be done. If
What is that?
if the fixed cost,
Well, my only concern there is whatever your action is with the classified staff, that could impact the decisions on the fixed costs.
okay, so it's
The
not stuff
dollars-
that has to be done, it's stuff that,
Well, it's the dollar,
requested.
well, yeah, I mean, it has to be done, but there could be elimination or reduction based on whatever the action you take on classified staff, salary wage increase.
So, hey Brad.
There should be no salary increase on that
Do-
because we've already
You
passed
brought
this.
us something.
But it's gonna add on top of the amount, so if you all land
Why
at
would we-
$7 million and then there's $1 million of additional cost, then you would land at $8 million.
Okay, but why are we adding it to that then? Since we've already increased their pay, we don't have to do their step increase or what their.
No, I'm talking about fixed costs like electricity, fuel,
Oh.
insurance.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, other operational, I'm sorry.
You said.
Operational costs.
well, that's what I was trying to get to, that stuff's not negotiable, is it?
Well, it's not, but I mean, some hard decisions based on priorities have to be made sometimes.
Is that mine?
Brett, how many
I
of
don't
those
think-
14 pay scales have we already looked at and adjusted?
You adjusted the IAs about 3 years ago.
But I mean, have we adjusted all 14 and we're starting over?
No, some of those are dietary, so they've been adjusted, of course. Some of, we increased the SPED IA scale and then, so we did not increase secretaries. We have not increased custodians, and that's your
But we
main one.
redid the secretaries,
You did for the bookkeepers and the data clerks,
bookkeepers and data
and
clerks.
then RNs have been redone.
But
as well.
secretaries have not been looked at
No,
whatsoever? Okay.
not schools, not regular
But
secretaries.
the regular IAs have, because we split them into certified and uncertified?
Yeah, yes, and you had SPED, you bumped the SPED by 5%.
Right.
Yeah.
Chad?
After pondering on this a few minutes, I believe we'd be better off to take action tonight on a percentage raise. Because if not, you're gonna knee-jerk reaction and try to, the $12 higher, I don't believe I believe we're waiting till the last hour to try to do it. I'm gonna throw a motion out if you'll not.
Please.
Non-certified staff, 5% raise. At least we know what that fixed number's gonna be. Because I'm thinking, if we're not,
I'd like to amend that motion.
Wait a minute, we ain't got a
We don't have a
second.
second.
Calm down, Mary Beth.
I want six.
just make it non-certified staff 6%.
I second that.
That's what
All right, now we got motion second. You wanna do something with that one?
No, I think you
okay?
did, I
Okay.
think I improved it.
Okay.
What's the number on that?
693, 660.
Now what are you gonna do with
I don't think you can.
principals and all that?
Well,
Nothing
I
tonight.
think you're,
Step at your other people.
Nothing tonight until we.
Well, I'm gonna wait till next week before we even follow through on that motion.
I think there's-
support that.
well, that's fine. I just think we need to give them some direction. We got 2 more meetings before we have to do anything.
We got
And-
directions. He's going with he's gonna come back with that figure. That's what
We
it's
got a
gonna
motion
cost.
in a second, how do we not?
Okay,
I mean,
go through,
Yeah,
see what happens.
I mean, I see this as different than his, core administrative group. I mean, that's a whole separate set of group, and it may be 15% for all I know, is what it takes to be competitive, so, yeah.
Anybody else?
Top question.
All right. Let's vote, Jennifer.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
No.
Miss Buchanan?
Yes.
Miss Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Carries with 1 no.
All right, there's your direction.
And we'll calculate that, and then next week, our goal will be to go through the final category, showing those groups as they are currently in board policy, calculate their salary, and then also propose alternate scale for those 3 groups.
Okay.
And then we definitely need to
They'll
look
take
at
care of
those other costs, and then the total costs, and then looking at those other costs, the operational costs, if things have to be trimmed, we'll have to work backwards.
They'll take care of the principals, vice principal, and staff here.
Yeah, it'll be the staff that are the certified senior leadership,
Senior
and
leadership.
in school senior leadership, which is principal and assistant
And
principal.
how many people that affect, Brad? Or Jerry, do you know roughly?
Well, with, all of our principals, it's 14. And then our assistant principals, so it's approximately 40
40 people total.
in our deputy. And there's only 6 senior leadership
Right.
folks.
I knew it would be a big number, so. Okay.
Everybody else has been accounted for in the certified salaries.
So everybody, as of right now, everybody is in line for a raise except roughly those 40 people.
We haven't addressed that.
Okay.
And just to clarify, to make sure, 5,033,652
You're
is what we've committed so
yes,
far.
you're exactly right,
I
Mr.
just
Flynn.
think that because we disagreed on the options, that we just need a motion of support in our new salary schedule.
Too late.
No, I second.
You made a motion,
And I got a second.
you got a second.
And it's
I
what-
want to
what's
show
the
support
motion?
It's called
for
a
it.
motion
I
in support
disagree.
for our
It's
salary
not
schedule
right.
because
I
That we just
disagree
voted
with which
for?
one, but
Yes,
I wanted to
because
support the
we
salary
voted
increase.
I know you did.
I mean, Mary
But those
Beth,
who didn't,
you'd have had to brought something
I
for
want to
everybody to
know
look
that we
at.
support
What do you mean?
the board's
Well, I mean,
action.
Well, nobody else wanted Z, we voted, and then Z didn't pass, they passed.
Okay, well, I want to be able to, like you said, support it.
It's not uncommon, we've done it before.
Well, I know you have, but I don't,
Feel.
yeah, Phil.
Bill?
I want to be able to support it too. Thank you, Annette. It just,
All in favor? Aye.
I don't know, we're gonna vote.
Explain this to me one more time.
Okay, so when you have a board that is voting on something, and we're voting on 2 different options, and the board is divided like that.
6 to 3.
you can ask for a vote, a motion of support, so that those who voted no can say, we support this salary schedule.
got you.
And we support the raise for the teachers, and we support this salary schedule. And it's not that we said no to the raise, it's we said no to that option.
We
Why they come
disagree
back
with
to
the
haunt you
option.
here in a
Thank
few
you.
weeks.
All right. Okay, let's roll call vote that, Jennifer.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
No.
Miss Buchanan?
Yes.
Miss Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Didn't make much difference.
Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, all I got to say is. you
Mr.
ain't got-
Meredith?
You don't, stand-
Yes.
you gotta stand
Mr.
up.
Day?
So,
Yes.
You know,
I get it, I get it, but I want to show support
All right,
for the raise.
we good?
Thank you.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
I got one. You're just the key. You just say.